Hello everybody, not doing a reaction on this video. I wanted to talk about something else, something I haven't actually spoken about in a little while. I wanted to talk about Sophie Lancaster, because something's just come up and it has really infuriated me. Now, as you might know, like I've been, over the 6 years I've been doing this channel, I have been a long time follower and supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation. Now, at the time of recording this, yesterday would have been Sophie Lancaster's birthday, when she would have been, I think, 38 years old. It also happened to be Sylvia Lancaster's birthday, Sylvia being Sophie's mother, who sadly passed away a few years ago as well. So, yesterday was a time for the alternative communities to come together, to celebrate the lives of Sophie and Sylvia Lancaster and all that they've done in, helping fight hate crimes against the alternative community. They've done a hell of a lot of work. And, I've spoken about who Sophie Lancaster is many times, but I'll give a brief recap. Several years ago, I can't remember exactly when it was. It was about 18 years ago now, actually. Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend, Rob Maltby, were walking home late at night through a park, and they were set upon by a group of people who violently and brutally attacked them. They beat them, kicked them, and knocked them to the ground. Rob Maltby was rendered unconscious. But the attack continued. Sophie Lancaster, in trying to protect her boyfriend, was kicked and had her head stamped on repeatedly and violently, so much so that she spent 13 days in a coma before unfortunately succumbing to her injuries and dying. Now, like I said, this happened 18 years ago. She was 20 years old when she was brutally killed. And all of this happened just purely because Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend were goths. Just because they were part of the alternative community. There was no other reason but that. They were minding their own business, just walking home, and they were set upon by this group of people and beaten violently, brutally. Rob Maltby did thankfully survive, although I do believe he sustained some lasting injuries that still plague him to this day. Now, this was a hate crime. They were targeted and attacked just purely because of who they were and what they looked like. That was it, nothing more. And since the death of Sophie Lancaster, Sylvia set up the Sophie Lancaster Foundation to stamp out prejudice, hatred and intolerance everywhere, to stop hate crimes, not just against the alternative community, but for anybody that was facing, hatred for any particular reason, whether it be their race, their gender, their sexual identity, their sexual preference, their taste in music, what have you. They were out there to help anybody who was facing violence just purely because of the lives they led. And she worked tirelessly. She worked very, very hard to try and do something about this, because she didn't want another family to suffer the same grief and loss that she felt when her daughter was brutally, violently and needlessly attacked and murdered. And like I said, yesterday would have been the birthday of both Sophie and Sylvia Lancaster. And as I said, it was a time when the alternative communities came together to celebrate the lives of these two people. And, to come together to celebrate all that they had accomplished in helping discriminated people. That being said, today, the day after this, a British tabloid newspaper, the Daily Telegraph, published an article, a really snide, vile, attacking article designed, specifically, written intentionally to promote outrage in their readership. Detailing, stating the fact that police forces are recording hate crimes against the alternative community, despite the fact that they are not amongst the 5 chief characteristics that are protected under hate crime laws. And hate crime laws, they're going to be protecting things like race, gender, sexual preference, that sort of thing. But because being a member of the alternative community is not in these guidelines, this tabloid, this vile publication, has taken it upon themselves to spit vitriol and drag Sophie and Sylvia's name through the dirt because they don't think hate crimes against people of the alternative community should be recorded. They don't think they should be classed as a hate crime. They're claiming police resources are getting wasted on investigating hate crimes against people of the alternative community the day after what would have been Sophie and Sylvia's birthdays. And this really pisses me off. Because a hate crime doesn't matter who it's aimed at. It is a hate crime. If you are attacking someone for any personality trait, anything about that person, if you're picking on them because they are disabled, if you're picking on them because of the colour of their skin, because of their sexual preference, because of their sexual identity, because of the way that they dress, the music they listen to, whatever it is, you are initiating hate upon that person because you don't like that aspect. That is a hate crime. Now, just because this one detail, the fact that someone dresses in alternative clothing, isn't specifically mentioned in these guidelines, does not mean it should not be a part of it. Sophie Lancaster has spent 18 years trying to fight against these sorts of things, trying to fight against people of the alternative community getting attacked and beaten and, violently and brutally beaten just because of the music they listen to and the way that they dress. And this publication takes it upon themselves the day after what would have been her birthday to drag her name through the dirt, saying that they are wasting police time and resources by investigating these things. It infuriates me. There is no reason, there is no possible justification anybody can give for this. How can you possibly suggest that any investigation of any crime, no matter what it is a waste of resources, especially if it is a crime that puts someone's life in danger? And what's more, there is a politician, I use the word very, very loosely, in the UK, who runs for I think they're called the Reform Party, Reform UK. He is actively trying to get hate crime laws repealed to allow hate speech, to allow people to, essentially just allowing people to attack people for whatever fucking reason they want. And I cannot, in any capacity, imagine what benefit could come from this. Why? I mean, I understand, there's going to be people crying free speech. There is a difference between free speech and inciting hatred. There is a big difference. But this person is actively looking to repeal hate speech laws so that people can just vilely and viciously attack people, either verbally or physically, just because you don't like something about that one person. It is unacceptable. You know, my older brother, I've mentioned this before, my older brother is a police officer, okay? And one of the leading reasons he became a police officer was to help fight against this discrimination that we face as the alternative community. You know, when he was younger, before joining the police force, he got attacked several times because he was a metalhead. You know, he would wear the big leather jacket, he had the long hair, you know. And, I mean, at one point he was violently attacked with a baseball bat, left bleeding in the middle of the street, and nothing was done. So, you know, one of the main reasons he became a police officer was to change this. And he is a big supporter of Sophie Lancaster Foundation as well. He has worked tirelessly and endlessly along, you know, as well as people like Sylvia Lancaster, to try and change this fact. You know, because there were times when my brother was even pulled over by the police. You know, he would just be walking down the street and the police would pull over and search him and start asking him questions, you know, accusing him of stuff just because he was a metalhead. And he wanted to change this, which is one of the reasons why he joined the police force. And now there's this fucking asshat trying to change the laws so that we can allow hate speech, so that we can pretty much allow people to commit hate crimes against people. And with him being a police officer, he of course has to follow whatever the laws are. You know, he's basically undoing everything that he and Sylvia have worked so hard to create. You know, a safe space for people, whoever they are, whether they're from the alternative culture, you know, LGBTQ or whatever. You know, racism is something which is shockingly on the rise once again. You know, it's always been around. I'm not saying it, you know, it disappeared and it's coming back again. But it is getting progressively worse again. You know, we're in the year 2024. It's almost 2025. We should be past this shit. You know, the world is divided enough as it is. You know, there's enough conflict. There's enough bloody separation in this world. We don't need to make it worse. And by repealing laws that protect people's lives, what justification can you possibly have for doing that? It is unacceptable. And it infuriates me beyond any reasonable level. You know, I cannot state just how much this pisses me off. You know, because I myself, you know, I've been brutally attacked. I've been violently beaten. People in my comments section, when I spoke about Sophie Lancaster in the past, have, you know, sent me comments, you know, saying, you know, there was one young woman who said, you know, when I was at school, someone set fire to my hair in class just because she was alternative. And you know what the teacher said? It's your own fault for dressing that way. A few years ago, there was a young woman in Manchester, I think it was. She was running a charity gig, raising money for charity. She was alternative. At one point during the evening, she had to go home and change her shoes because the shoes she was wearing got broken or damaged. On her way home, which was only a short distance away, she was violently and brutally attacked. She managed to escape. You know, she was set upon by 5 people. One young woman was set upon by 5 people. She was violently attacked because she was a metalhead. Once she got home, she got dressed and she had to go back to the venue that she was hosting this gig because she was hosting it. On the way back, she was attacked again by that same group of people. Just because of the fact that she was a goth. And whoever this fucking asshat is, Rupert Lowe, this asshat somehow thinks that this isn't acceptable. You know, he thinks that we don't need laws to protect us from these kind of things. That young woman was set upon by 5 people. She could have ended up in hospital, and she could have ended up like Sophie Lancaster. Thankfully, she wasn't. And there's this... We do not need this sort of shit in the world. You know, 18 years ago, a young woman was beaten to death just because of how she looked, just because of the music that she listened to. They didn't even know who she was. They didn't know her. They didn't know anything about her. They didn't care. All they saw was someone that didn't fit what they considered normal. And they thought that was perfectly acceptable grounds to attack her and beat her to death. And her grief-stricken mother spent years of her life, even to the point where she was incredibly ill. I mean, she was very, very ill by the end of it. She still continued to work hard and tirelessly to stop this sort of shit from happening to anybody else. And this fucking newspaper, the Telegraph, deem it acceptable on the day after her birthday to drag their names through the dirt and to say that they're wasting time, that what they're doing isn't important because being part of the alternative community doesn't fit into the 5 sacred criteria of what connotes a bloody hate crime. This sort of shit needs to stop. We cannot allow this shit to keep happening. Because sooner or later, if we carry on like this, there's going to be another incident like Sophie Lancaster. And we just cannot have that. It's... The whole world is going backwards. You know, racism is making a huge comeback for some reason. You know, it's always been there, like I said, it's always been there. We're never ever going to be fully rid of it. But I cannot understand how people can think it's an acceptable way to behave and how people can think it's an acceptable way to live. If we all just fucking got along, the world would be a much better place to live. You know, you see all these fragile people who are refusing to eat rainbow-coloured ice cream or look or touch anything rainbow because it's gay. A rainbow is not gay. They might use the rainbow as their symbol, fine. But that doesn't mean everything rainbow is fucking gay, does it? What is wrong with you people? Are you so fucking fragile that you have to be scared of something that doesn't affect you? You know, someone's sexuality does not affect you. Someone's race does not affect you. Someone's taste in music, someone's taste in clothing does not affect you in any fucking way. So why do you think it would be an okay thing to attack them for it? It doesn't have any effect on your life whatsoever. So why not just ignore it and move the fuck on? It makes me question the overall intelligence of the world at large when things like this carry on. We're not supposed to be going backwards. We're supposed to have evolved past this shit. But, you know, these people can say and try and do whatever they want. They are not going to break us. We are always going to stand at one. We are always going to be united. They can try and break us, but they will fail. And they will never, ever stop the Sophie Lancaster Foundation for fighting for what they know is right. They will never stop my brother for fighting for what he knows is right. I know a lot of people have a negative opinion about the police, but my brother, he is a damn good man. And he has fought hard to keep prejudice out of the police force. He has fought hard to keep prejudice off the streets. But if people are going to start changing laws, it's going to make it so much harder for him to actually protect the people that need protecting. It's going to make it so much harder for the Sophie Lancaster Foundation to protect people that need protecting. We cannot allow this shit to carry on. It needs to stop. These politicians should not be allowed to behave this way. They should not be allowed to make decisions that will cause harm to people. Just because it's something that they might not like. They have no right to cause harm to other people. And that's what they're doing. If they repeal these laws allowing hate speech, if they repeal these laws that basically say, yeah, you can commit whatever fucking hate crime you want, they are held accountable. The blood is on their hands. I cannot abide people like this, and I cannot understand the way their mind works, how they can think that it's an acceptable way to behave. You know, what is it in their mind that is so broken that they think it's an acceptable way to behave? I just don't get it. But anyway, yeah. I just had to get this off my chest because it's made me so utterly furious. And, you know, it's something that I've spoken about many, many times. You know, the Sophie Lancaster is something I very strongly believe in. You know, because, you know, I myself have been through it. I know some of the people watching have been through it. I know my brother's been through it. I know so many people who have been attacked just for the fact that they are part of the alternative community. And I will not sit idly by and let Sophie and Sylvia's legacy get destroyed by some arse clown who's just going to get nitpicky and get all butthurt just because it doesn't fit into what he thinks it should be. So, you know, I will always stand with the Sophie Lancaster Foundation. I will always fight for the rights of the underappreciated. You know, I will always fight for the minority. Whether you're gay, straight, Muslim, Christian, whatever you are. I don't care who you are. I will always fight for you. I will always fight for what is right. And everybody else should do that. Prejudice is never the way. Hatred is never the answer. We need to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. Anyway, I just had to get it off my chest. I had to talk about it because, you know, it's just one of those. It's so important, and it's something I've spoken about numerous times over the 6 years I've done this. And to see that, to see a vile publication just smear their names like that, it disgusts me. Anyway, thank you all for listening. And, yeah, I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.